Energy, energy, energy. Inner chi. Inner chi, energy. I don't think that one's a coincidence. Why does this world and all the corporations that dominate it principally rely on coal, gas, and oil? Now, before I continue, some homework for all my brothers and sisters. If you have not done it yet, I'll put the link in the description. Watch the documentary How Oil Runs the World, just so you have some context for what I'm about to talk about. There are other documentaries that I'll put in there as well that are also very helpful for digesting this information. Or just listen to it intuitively. Up to you. So, our world and its corporations that run it and that people have allowed themselves to be enslaved to, corporations, death. It's all about the death frequency. These corporations run primarily on coal, gas, and oil, and the supply and demand of that oil and gas and coal is what allows these big oil companies to have the monopoly that they do, and they control the amounts that we're told are in reserve, when really, when you do your homework, oil, for instance, is a renewable resource. It's abiotic. It is a regenerative process that goes on under the earth. We should not be using oil, though, as our primary fuel source because it's highly destructive to our earth and the amount of pollution that has destroyed so much of human health that arises from the combustion of these fuels is a phenomenon that can be completely avoided if we understood that there is so many alternative energy sources that we could be using, that what we call Tartaria, or whatever that true name of that civilization was, not so long ago, perhaps only 200-300 years ago, there was a huge mud flood that wiped it out. But that Tartaria were using free energy, etheric energy, through ether energy extraction, AEE, I see it termed before. All of the architecture is, or not necessarily all of it, a lot of it got destroyed, but so much evidence is still here that these power stations all over the world were harnessing the power of ether with no coal, gas, and oil, super clean, free energy for the masses, consciousness allowed to expand, consciousness allowed to be free and access free energy. If the energy is not free, if you're paying energy bills, guess what? You are enslaved in a matrix. And that's what everyone's suffering with in the Western countries particularly. Oh, I got to pay this bill here, I got to pay that bill there. Everyone's got to pay bill. I mean, even the first Rockefeller was called Kill Bill. What was he called? Devil Bill. Devil Bill. Everyone's paying Devil Bill still. Just like when you get the bill in a restaurant, huh? You think you paid it off, and then you ate dead animals. You think you already paid that bill? Nope, you haven't paid that bill yet. So anyway, that's another topic, which it's all interrelated. When we're enslaved to coal, gas, and oil, and we're enslaved as energy slaves, well then, we're stuck in the carnal mind, and this has actually come about because of being stuck in the carnal mind, because we've enslaved Mother Earth's creatures. Well, we've allowed vampires to come and enslave us, and they have methods of maintaining their power structure, and one of those methods, of course, is making sure people use their energy sources rather than being able to tap into free energy technologies, which are so well established already. However, they're not allowed to be accessed on a mainstream level. And a lot of them get bought or patented or, have already been suppressed by the big corporations of the world already. Take, for instance, General Motors, and supposedly he was called Tom Ogle or Tom Odell. I think it was Tom Ogle in maybe it was in the 70s. He created the water vapor fuel system. He was powering a supercar to go across America on one tank of gas or whatever the system he was using. But the principal energy was water vapor, the water vapor fuel system. Oh, of course, we know there's so much energy in water, and if you correctly if you correctly harness that, then you can power so many different sources of technologies, so many different types of technologies with this energy source. So they want to make us energy slaves, and who's they? Well, they are at the same time as being a real phenomena, a real shadow government of people, vampires, demon-possessed, whatever you want to call it. They are trying to keep us energy enslaved so that they can keep feeding off of the suffering and the pain, because that's their primary fuel source now that they're disconnected from source. So, but really what they are is the collective projection of the unresolved shadow, or shall we say the projection of the collective unresolved shadow. What we reject, we project. And so when we don't manage our own energy and become, masters of our own health from the Christ within and through tuning into the universe, well then guess what? Someone's going to do it for you, and usually they don't have your best interest, especially in the Kali Yuga, if that's the era that we are in. So, we have to become self-sufficient. We have to become self-governing. We have to really tune into the Christ within, as the first Christians taught, the Nazareans, the Essenes. And I'm sure the Zoroastrians were also teaching this, which have been massively suppressed from human consciousness. And of course, whoever it was, the creeds and races that were inhabiting what's being termed as Tartaria. It's all connected, We've got to put the puzzle pieces together, and we may not have the complete picture of our true history because so much of it's being kept, for instance, in the Vatican Library, one of the most guarded places in the world, and God only knows other libraries that have been hidden from us that we don't know about. But, through intuition and through accessing what they might call the Akashic records, through even things such as remote viewing, which if you want to know about that, watch Russell Targ talk about that, and the 10 talk that got banned but then re-uploaded. We can access infinite amount of information if we tune in to the Universe FM. You're listening to Universe FM. Yeah, tune into that. It's an infinite bandwidth. And when we skip the middleman and we stop being dependent on teachers, gurus, politicians, authority figures, we stop being dependent. Doesn't mean we can't use other souls as guides, should they be giving us down to earth from Christ information. That's great, but ultimately we don't want to be dependent on anyone, especially if they're hiding behind the cloak of an authority figure, because Satan dresses evil in robes of good, and a lot of these people appear as the savior. Donald Trump has come to save the day, everybody. Of course he's controlled opposition, and as the Jesuit trained Lenin said, if you want to control, or was it Stalin? One of them said, if you want to control the opposition, you have to lead it yourself. So of course they played the Trump card. Now he's pushing the destroy Gaza and destroy Palestine agenda. Of course this guy is a Satanist from day one. Jesuit groomed. Wake up, my brothers and sisters. If you don't see that one, you're in a little bit of trouble. So take my words sincerely. So yes, free energy. We need to free our own energy, of course, through the other videos I've shared. It's all about freeing the energy channels of the body through the mucus-free lifestyle, through practicing, of course, going to nature and just getting the basics right so that we can get our energy flowing and ascend naturally. And, of course, if we're above our lower chakras and things are flowing, then the system changes and the energy changes, of course. And so part of being an energy slave in the energy matrix is you're stuck in the survival chakra below the waistline because you've got too much waste above the waistline that needs flushing out. But because we're stuck in the lower chakras, then yes, it's very easy for someone like the Rockefeller bloodline and all the other bloodlines that control them, because it's a hierarchy, and if you think it's just the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers at the top, then you've got to study the Jesuit bloodlines and all that jazz, or the bloodlines that fed into the Jesuits. And of course they all feed into the fallen angel Lucifer, and arguably Lucifer works for Satan, or at least of course was poisoned by Satan and fell from heaven, because Lucifer means the shining one, but no longer of course is Lucifer the shining one, because Lucifer's primary aim is to try and enslave the whole of humanity to AI and destroy all that is holy and true and disconnect everyone from the divine. create a new world order totalitarian system with the CDBC and a universal basic income that can be turned off at a whim. Should you be a naughty Matrix player? Yeah, social credit score and all that jazz. That's what they want. 15-minute cities, 5G perimeters. Yeah, that's what they want to bring. But let me tell you something. God is greater than all of your plans. God can see every little tiny detail you're trying to keep from the public. God can see everything. Christ can see everything. And all will have to be answered for. Da, 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 da. So, free energy, free your energy, free your inner chi. Moses lifted up the manna in the wilderness, amidst the mist. He had to go through the dark night of the soul. That's the scary part, when we're coming into contact with a lot of these truths, we have to go through the dark night of the soul. We have to really question things. And of course, you don't want to question everything overnight. Go at the pace that you can handle. But this rabbit hole goes very deep, and you don't want to get stuck down the rabbit hole. You want to pull the rabbit out the hat and reveal the dark magician's secrets so that you can no longer be a victim of them. There's a reason why we study this stuff, not to become experts of it, and certainly not to join it, but to expose it, and of course, to, at the right amount of knowledge required. You don't want to become absolute experts on it. It's not everyone's calling, but to some degree you need to have knowledge of this so that you can transcend it and no longer be a slave to this energy harvesting battery matrix. All right, matrix, I mean in Latin, it doesn't mean the womb. And in many respects, if you're stuck in the matrix, you're still stuck in the womb, which means you're not born yet. And so we want to be born again in the spirit of truth, in the spirit of freedom, which means no longer a slave to false corporations and false energy systems. We should not be using coal, gas and oil. We don't need to use them. And the poisoning of the air that comes from combusting these is the greatest sin, arguably, when it comes to health, because the air is the most important ingredient in the cosmic cake. Before anything else, right? You die quickest when you run out of breath. And then it's the water, then it's the food. And with food, well, you're not, arguably not dying from food deprivation, from food starvation from food, but you're actually dying from the withdrawal, from being so addicted to eating a certain way that when, of course, the body is no longer stimulated with that and all the waste, it has to be confronted. Well, this can cause a rapid sudden aging, especially, of course, if one is not managing that process correctly through proper fasting, purification. If it's really starvation and one has not even got access to the basics, then that can be really dangerous. But of course, that's not the main topic I wished to talk about in this conversation. It was about the energy we're using as a species in terms of electrical energy and coal, gas and oil, and the suppression of electromagnetic technologies that, like your Victor Schauberger and your Hutchison effect and levitation, and of course, as I said before, Thomas Ogle. All these kind of energy technologies that were free. Of course, we know about Nikola Tesla, but they were just reverse engineering the Tartarian stuff. They're just reverse engineering all the Tartarian technology that's really being kept from us. There's a CIA document that literally outlines how they've kept the truth about the Tartaria free energy, free world, with all these old world buildings from us, and it's all been repurposed, and everything has been modified. In our history books, his story books, history is written by the victor of the verb, by Victor himself. But they've distorted everything. One of the Jesuits called Mr. Scaliger was responsible for editing our history and trying to deliberately confuse things. Even our calendar is confused. It's coming from Pope Gregory, and he was supposedly, what was the name of the Jesuit that poisoned him to change the calendar? Julius? Clavius? Sorry, excuse me. He was called Clavius or Clavus. If you check the name Clavius, pretty sure that's the name of the Jesuit who gave us the Gregorian calendar, which is certainly not in alignment with the lunar cycle. It's supposed to be 13 months. Arguably, there's 13 zodiacs. Well, 28 days in a month. Everything's been distorted deliberately to try and manipulate our energy, confuse us, and get us stuck in mind control modalities so that we just remain slaves and we no longer can be free ether opians living off of the ether. But now we have Ethernet, we have the World Wide Web, which is a replacement of the Wood Wide Web. Of course, nature is the internet of everything. We must return to her, we must return to her laws, we must do everything in honor of her first, then we can truly ascend. And this is what that free energy civilization I'm talking about, our ancestors that have been kept from us, were doing. They were really honoring this. They were really tuning into spirit. They were really able to manifest our full potential as we're supposed to be here in this Eden that's been turned into a contested world, a battle between the heaven and the hells. So, which side do you choose? Oh, you want to go on that new age flex and say, oh, non-duality, there is no good and evil. I don't believe there's evil. I spoke to someone the other day. They said to me, I don't believe that there's evil. I said, excuse me, but what if I drop a bomb on a Palestinian hospital? Is that not evil? And she said, yes, that is evil. I said, well, hold on a minute there. Then you've now contradicted yourself there. And she's a yoga teacher. Well, if you're a teacher and you're telling people there's no evil, is that not evil itself? Is not the denial of evil the greatest evil? Is that not what allows evil to flourish? Am I speaking much quicker in this podcast? I am, because there's a lot of information to share. And I guess it's time to channel the hummingbird frequency. Put it 2 times slower if you need to. So anyway, a lot of information all together, pieced together. Perhaps you need to put some puzzle pieces together yourself and go back over what I've said. A lot of information, but the most important information for each and every one of us to hear is that the reason why we're being kept as debt slaves and energy slaves and food slaves and addicted to every single conceivable thing you can imagine is because we stay low in the lower chakras. And as long as we're in the lower chakras, we stay batteries for the matrix. And as long as we stay batteries for the matrix, the satanic forces keep getting their feed. But the time is going to come where all of this is going to have to come to an end, and what we might call Judgment Day will be delivered by the Most High, and everything will have to come out in the wash. Think of it like the divine laundry. So we have to do the divine laundry on our own lives. Mind, body, soul. It's time to clean the conscious, clean the physical, clean everything. Forgive, pray, fast, purify. Go on the mucus-free diet. Go on the mucus-free lifestyle. Not the mucus-free diet. Eat, of course. We don't want to be dying from what we eat. Eat sits in the middle of the word death. No, it's time for us to regenerate. It's time for us to become who we truly are as much as we can be. It's going to be a big test for all of us to face. But, yes, we should be using free energy technologies. We should not be dependent on coal, gas and oil. We shouldn't be using gas-guzzling motorbikes and cars and lorries and trucks and airplanes that just spew absolute toxic garbage out of their exhausts. Are we not exhausted from these exhaust fumes? We should be fuming. We need to reawaken the consciousness within and realize there's a game going on here and all the politicians are just pawns on the chessboard. If you think Trump is really the one in control, then you're not seeing the psychic puppet strings pulling that mofo. Psychic puppet strings, look for them. They're everywhere. And the spirit world is more real than the physical world in terms of where the energy is flowing from. Mind over matter. Must look first at spirit before we look at the physical to understand what's really going on. The invisible is governing the visible. You can't see the energy you're enslaved by. You can't see the Wi-Fi frequency. You can't see the 5G visibly with earthly eyes, but with spiritual eyes you can see it and you can feel it. And that's what we need to do. We need to activate our spiritual senses, our spiritual eyes, our spiritual chambers that have become blocked through being poisoned through bad air and improper practices. Do your best, my brothers and sisters, to come back to this truth. The Christ within you must be awakened and activated. No kundalini yoga, forcing it through mantra and trying to force the energy. Nope, you got to follow the natural law. You got to come back to the true path of God and creation and righteousness and stop believing the Pharisees, the fake gurus, the wolves in sheep clothing, They will appear to you as sheep, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. You bet your ass. And if you put your chips down on these people and think that you're going to cash in, you're sorely mistaken. The only way you're going to cash in the casino of life is when you put your chips down on Christ. That's right, my brothers and sisters. Put your chips on the Christ, on the Spirit, on the holy truth, on the infinite source of creation. Yeah, this isn't what the church taught you, because it says don't go to church, right? Although the song by Coldplay called Church is really good, so I encourage you to listen to that one if you get the chance. So, energy, inner chi. Start studying this stuff. I will share some resources in the description. You know what it's all about, my brothers and sisters. Deep inside of you is the Christ.